You ever notice how sometimes the most potent force in a conversation isn't what's said, but what's left unsaid? Imagine standing across from someone brimming with certainty, armed with facts, logic, and fervent speech, yet, as you meet their gaze, their arguments begin to falter, not because you interrupted or challenged them outright, but because your very presence quietly erodes their foundation. This is the art of shattering logic without a single spoken word. It's not about winning debates or proving points through volume or verbosity. It's about mastering the subtle, almost imperceptible power of silence and unshakable calm. When you harness this, you don't just speak, you dominate the space between words, making others doubt themselves in the most profound way. The first truth to grasp is that people crave certainty. When they see a confident person who doesn't rush to fill every silence, who meets their gaze steadily without flinching or scrambling for answers, it creates an invisible pressure. This pressure forces them into the uncomfortable territory of uncertainty, where logic, their logical armor, begins to crack. Your silent command becomes a mirror reflecting their own hesitation, their wavering thoughts. Without saying anything, you are making them feel the weight of their doubt. But this isn't about being cold or detached. It's about cultivating mastery over yourself, over your posture, your breathing, your very energy. When your body speaks confidence and control, even in silence, it commands respect and attention. It's the slight pause before responding, the unwavering eye contact that refuses to break, the relaxed yet deliberate gestures that convey you are grounded in a reality they have yet to comprehend. You're not engaging in their battle of words, you are existing beyond it. This existence unsettles because it's unfamiliar, it's a language they cannot argue with. More than anything, this power is psychological. It taps into the primal human need to make sense of the world, to feel in control. Silence creates a void, a space where minds rush to fill the gaps, often turning inward to question their own assumptions and conclusions. This is where your silent dominance takes root. You don't force them to think differently, you let their own minds betray them. The absence of your words becomes a weapon that rewrites the narrative without ever needing to be spoken. And here is the ultimate lesson. In a world overwhelmed by noise and argument, those who master the art of quiet control rewrite the rules of influence. They understand that logic is fragile, and it shatters most easily when confronted not with counter-logic, but with the calm, unyielding presence of someone who requires no justification. In the unfolding moments of any encounter, your silence becomes a canvas on which others paint their own uncertainty. You don't need to explain or defend your position. The mere fact of your composed presence unravels the intricate web of their reasoning. This presence is a fortress unbreachable by words, impervious to challenges. Others will find themselves questioning the validity of their arguments, feeling exposed, unarmed, and uncertain. As you deepen this mastery, you'll find that your control expands beyond individual moments. Your silent authority shapes environments, alters group dynamics, and commands loyalty without uttering a command. People sense your power instinctively because it resonates at a level far beneath the surface of conscious thought. They respond not to what you say, but to what you embody, a force of nature that logic alone cannot confront. To live this way is to step into a realm where influence transcends speech, where your inner stillness becomes a roar that drowns out the clamor of others' convictions. It is not merely silence, it is presence sharpened into a weapon, invisible, intangible, yet devastatingly effective. You will notice, then, that those who rely solely on words to assert dominance are vulnerable. Their logic can be dissected, their arguments dismantled, and their intentions questioned. But when you wield silence as a strategic tool, you control the very air they breathe. You create a vacuum where their logic suffocates, leaving only the undeniable force of your unspoken command. This power does not come from arrogance or disdain, but from deep self-mastery and an unshakable belief in your own inner authority. It is the calm eye in the storm, the still point that bends the world around it without a single utterance. To embody this fully, you must learn to be comfortable with discomfort, to sit in silence when others chatter, to hold space when others rush to fill it. You become the enigma they cannot solve, the question with no answer, the presence that fractures their certainty. And as you move forward, remember this: the most devastating dismantling of logic is not through confrontation, but through the quiet, relentless power of presence. When you master this, you hold a key few ever truly understand, the key to shattering minds without a single word. True power lies not in words, but in presence and unspoken influence, the silent command that unsettles others' certainty. This is a concept that few truly grasp because society conditions us to believe that communication is all about what we say, how loudly we say it, or how cleverly we craft our arguments. Yet, the reality is far more profound and unsettling for those who rely heavily on verbal persuasion. The most profound form of influence is wielded without uttering a single word. Presence, the way you carry yourself, the energy you emit, the quiet confidence that radiates from your very being speaks volumes more than any argument or explanation could. It is this presence that has the power to quietly dismantle the logic of others, forcing them to question themselves and their assumptions even when you remain completely silent. The absence of words can be louder than 1,000 speeches because it forces others into a psychological space where their own reasoning falters. When you enter a room or a conversation, your presence announces itself long before you speak. The way your eyes hold a steady gaze, the calm steadiness of your posture, the deliberate pacing of your movements, all contribute to an unspoken authority that others sense immediately. This presence is not about dominance through aggression or intimidation. Rather, it is an almost magnetic force born of self, possession, and certainty. It demands attention not because it shouts, but because it is unshakable. It communicates that you are grounded, in control, and above the noise of petty arguments and defensiveness. In this way, your silence becomes a strategic tool, a weaponized calm that unsettles those who expect to dominate through vocal assertiveness. Consider the psychological impact this has on someone whose entire framework for debate or persuasion relies on verbal exchanges. When faced with a silent, steady presence, their usual tactics lose effectiveness. They expect to be met with words, with challenges, with retorts, but instead they encounter a void. This void is unnerving because it denies them the usual feedback they rely on to validate their logic or position. Silence holds up a mirror, reflecting their own thoughts and doubts back at them. In that reflection, cracks appear. The certainty they clung to begins to waver under the weight of their own unspoken questions. Your presence, devoid of words, becomes a pressure that compresses their confidence and fractures their logical armor. This silent command is further magnified by the deliberate withholding of reaction. When someone presents an argument and you respond not with immediate rebuttal or explanation, but with composed silence, it forces them to fill that space. Human minds hate emptiness. They rush to populate silence with thoughts, doubts, and second-guessing. Your quietness becomes a psychological trap, an invisible force that leads them inward, making them confront inconsistencies they might have ignored if challenged head-on. This inward doubt is far more devastating than any outward confrontation, because it breaks the opponent's logical flow without the need for a single word. The mastery of presence requires profound self-control. It demands that you resist the impulse to prove yourself, to clarify, or to defend. Instead, you cultivate a centeredness that allows you to absorb the noise without being disturbed by it. Your calm becomes an anchor in turbulent conversations, an unyielding pillar that others find inexplicably intimidating. This is the power of unspoken influence, the ability to command respect and control the emotional atmosphere simply by existing fully in the moment, calm and confident. It is a power that defies explanation and therefore evades the usual counters and defenses that logic and argument might provoke. Presence is not just a matter of physical demeanor, it is a force that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. It influences not only what others consciously perceive, but also what they feel intuitively. This is why it is so difficult to argue against or even articulate. People can sense when someone possesses this kind of authority, and it unsettles them deeply because it transcends language and logic. It taps into the primal part of the brain that governs emotional responses, making others feel off balance without understanding why. Your silent command disrupts the expected flow of interaction, leaving others disoriented and vulnerable. In essence, true power in social dynamics emerges not from the volume of your voice, but from the weight of your presence. It is the invisible force that unsettles others' certainty because it operates beneath the surface of conscious thought, where logic alone cannot reach. When you master this, you shift the balance of influence dramatically. You become the calm center around which others orbit, unable to fully grasp or challenge your authority. You shatter their logic not by disproving it, but by creating a space where their logic ceases to hold the power it once had. This is the silent command, an influence so profound it requires no words to enforce, yet its impact echoes in every interaction, forever altering how others perceive and respond to you. Mastery over yourself, your body language, your calm demeanor, your unshakable poise is the ultimate weapon to dismantle logic without uttering a single word. This mastery is not something innate or accidental. It is a skill honed through conscious effort, self-awareness, and discipline. The external world often judges us by our words, but true influence comes from what lies beneath. The silent language of the body and mind that communicates far more than spoken language ever could. When you command your internal state, you send a clear and undeniable message to those around you. You are grounded, unthreatened, and in control. This unshakable poise unsettles others because it reveals a power that transcends argument or debate, an authority that speaks louder than any verbal persuasion. Body language is the most immediate and primal form of communication we have. It precedes words and often betrays our true feelings more than our carefully chosen phrases. When your posture is erect yet relaxed, your movements deliberate and slow, and your gaze steady and unwavering, you project confidence and certainty. This nonverbal communication signals to others that you are not defensive, not insecure, and not easily swayed. It disrupts the usual dynamic of confrontation, where each side tries to dominate through volume or complexity of argument. Instead, your calm physical presence alone can cause others to second-guess their own stance. They feel, on a subconscious level, that they are facing someone who cannot be easily rattled or manipulated, which throws their logical certainty into question. Calm demeanor is a reflection of emotional mastery. In moments of tension, when others might raise their voices or rush to fill silences with hurried explanations, your composed calm becomes a fortress. This calm is not passive, it is active control over your internal responses. By maintaining steady breathing, relaxed muscles, and measured facial expressions, you create an atmosphere of equilibrium that others instinctively respect and fear. This presence of calmness disrupts the emotional tempo of any interaction. It forces others to slow down, to reconsider their approach, and often to confront their own agitation. Your silence combined with this calm demeanor becomes a powerful tool to diffuse conflict and unsettle even the most assertive interlocutor. Unshakable poise stems from a deep well of self-confidence and self-knowledge. It is the understanding that your value and authority do not depend on others' approval or the need to prove yourself. When you embody this, it radiates through every micro-expression and gesture, making it impossible for others to undermine your position through logic alone. This poise is what separates those who speak loudly but lack substance from those who say little but command immense respect. It shows that you are anchored in your own truth, and that external arguments cannot sway you easily. This steadfastness makes it psychologically difficult for others to maintain their own arguments because they are met not with resistance or rebuttal, but with an unmovable presence that defies challenge. This mastery over self and body language operates like an unspoken narrative that controls the flow of any interaction. While others might be scrambling to articulate points or justify their stance, your controlled presence shapes the conversation without interrupting it. It creates a psychological tension where others feel compelled to fill the silence or question their own words. Because you are not reacting emotionally or verbally, you maintain a strategic advantage. Your unshakable poise signals that you are above the fray, that you are not caught up in the urgency of proving a point. This alone can cause others to lose confidence in their logic, as they subconsciously pick up on your ability to remain detached and composed. Mastery over yourself also involves the subtle art of timing and restraint. Knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is crucial. Often, the urge to respond immediately or defend yourself clouds the true power of silence. By mastering restraint, you demonstrate a superior understanding of social dynamics. You allow your presence to do the heavy lifting while conserving your words for moments of maximum impact. This patience forces others to reveal their weaknesses and inconsistencies on their own, without your direct intervention. They become exposed not through confrontation, but through your quiet confidence and deliberate silence. This internal mastery extends beyond physical presence to mental discipline. Controlling your thoughts, managing your emotions, and maintaining a centered mind create the foundation for this outward poise. When your mind is calm and focused, your body naturally reflects that state. Conversely, a chaotic mind betrays itself in restless gestures, fidgeting, and inconsistent eye contact. The person who masters their inner state radiates a magnetic calm that disrupts the flow of others' logic. They become the calm in the storm, the steady force that unsettles those who rely on emotional volatility or verbal dominance to mask uncertainty. Mastery over yourself transforms silence from a void into a weapon of influence. Your body language, calm demeanor, and unshakable poise communicate a strength that words cannot capture. This strength breaks down the foundation of others' arguments by denying them the usual feedback and emotional reactions they expect. They are left facing not an opponent to be defeated through debate, but a presence that commands respect, curiosity, and doubt. This is the highest form of power, the ability to dismantle logic through the mastery of self, without ever needing to say a word. Understanding the psychology of silence and the space it creates allows you to control the narrative, making others question their own reasoning and lean into your unseen authority. Silence is often misunderstood as mere absence, an empty gap waiting to be filled, but in reality, it is a powerful psychological tool that shapes perception, emotion, and thought. When used strategically, silence creates a tension that unsettles minds conditioned to seek constant input and reassurance. In this tension, the brain becomes restless, compelled to fill the void with internal dialogue, doubts, and questions about what remains unspoken. This psychological process grants you immense control over the conversation without ever uttering a single word. The human mind is wired to avoid uncertainty and discomfort, and silence, especially in moments where one expects a response, amplifies this discomfort. When you remain silent in situations where others anticipate a rebuttal or explanation, you force them to confront their own thoughts in isolation. This solitude is a crucible for doubt. They start to replay their arguments, searching for weaknesses or contradictions they might have overlooked. Your silence acts as a mirror reflecting their uncertainty, causing their logic to unravel quietly within their own minds. The power of this silent pause is that it does not attack or challenge directly. It simply allows their own reasoning to turn against itself. Silence interrupts the habitual flow of social interaction, breaking patterns of speech and response that others rely on to maintain control. Conversations typically follow predictable rhythms: statement, response, rebuttal. By inserting silence, you disrupt these rhythms and force a recalibration. This recalibration often leaves others unbalanced and off guard, as they no longer have the familiar cues to guide their behavior. The disruption destabilizes their confidence, making them more susceptible to your subtle, unspoken influence. You become the silent orchestrator of the dialogue, controlling its tempo and direction without saying a word. This psychological control through silence also leverages the human discomfort with ambiguity. When you withhold your thoughts or reactions, you introduce ambiguity into the interaction. Others crave clarity and certainty, But your silence denies them that. They are left to speculate, to fill the gaps with their own assumptions and fears. This speculative mental activity often leads to self-doubt and overthinking, which weaken the solidity of their logical position. By simply not providing the expected verbal validation or refutation, you shift the burden of meaning, making onto them, a burden many find heavy and destabilizing. In addition to creating discomfort and doubt, silence has the remarkable ability to command respect and attention. When you do choose to speak after a period of silence, your words carry far more weight precisely because they have been anticipated and waited for. This dynamic enhances your authority and influence. Others listen more intently because they sense that what you say is deliberate, measured, and important. Your silence builds an invisible framework of power around you, within which your eventual speech resonates like a command rather than a casual remark. This technique, used wisely, ensures that your interventions are not lost in the noise but stand out as pivotal moments. Silence gives you the advantage of observation and assessment. While others are busy filling the air with words, you remain in control of your mental space. You observe their reactions, body language, and shifts in tone, gathering vital information that reveals their weaknesses or hesitations. This observational advantage strengthens your position because you are not committed to any argument prematurely. Instead, you remain fluid and adaptable, able to respond with precision when the time is right. Your silence becomes a strategic reserve of power that others cannot anticipate or counter easily. Understanding the psychological depth of silence also means recognizing its limits and appropriate applications. Silence can be misinterpreted as weakness or disengagement if not wielded with awareness and confidence. True mastery involves using silence intentionally to create pressure, to build anticipation, and to foster reflection, rather than retreating into it out of uncertainty or fear. When silence is paired with confident presence and poise, it magnifies your influence exponentially. It becomes a statement in itself, a declaration of control that needs no explanation. In social and professional dynamics, this psychological control through silence disrupts the typical power structures based on verbal dominance. It elevates the individual who can maintain composure and strategic quietude above those who rely solely on spoken argument. Others begin to look to you for cues, to wait for your response, and to reconsider their positions in your absence of immediate reaction. This shift of attention and authority is the essence of unspoken power, an invisible force that governs interactions far more deeply than any argument could. Mastering the psychology of silence and the space it creates is about controlling the narrative without control over words. It is about crafting a presence that invites others to question, doubt, and ultimately submit to your unseen authority. This silent influence bypasses the defenses of logic and reason, reaching the deeper emotional and subconscious layers where true persuasion occurs. When you wield silence with intention and understanding, you hold a power that few can resist, a power that shatters logic by never needing to confront it directly.